Warning, the following podcast contains irreverent humor, uneducated and exceptionally nerdy opinions, potential cursing, and plenty of love for the prequels. If any of the preceding offends you, please turn off your computer immediately, and may the Force be with you.
Why, you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder!
You can't use that word! Only we can use that word!
We'll use the Force. That's not how the Force works.
You're tuned in to the Nerf Herder Council, your source for Star Wars opinion, conversation, and debate, featuring your hosts, JT. What are you going to have? Like Luke and Leia are the product of intergalactic rape? What are you going to do? AJ.
I was so hoping this was going to be a family show, too.
Oh, my God. Steve.
That's when you know you've really hit your peak and you're
Right.
a good character. When you start decapitating children, I'm good with it.
In this episode of the Nerf Herder Council, we discuss Battlefront, Battlefront 2, Episode 2, and other movies.
This is the Nerf Herder Council.
All right, so you ready?
Go for it.
Anytime.
What's up, everyone? We're back right here on the Nerf Herder Council. I am your host, JT. With me, as usual, AJ and Steve. And hope you guys enjoyed our special May the 4th episode where we discussed the wonder that is Star Wars Celebration. I finally got my email confirmation for my third hotel reservation, in case anybody is wondering. So
Everybody's sitting on the edge of their seats.
right?
Good God, I hope he got his hotel.
They're just happy you're not going to talk about it this time.
No, now I'm trying to get AJ to email the 501st because apparently the reason we didn't get the Rosen is because it's booked out by the 501st, and AJ is a member of the 501st, but he is resisting emailing them to see if there's a way that he can get a room through them.
Are you saying the 501st placed the first order for the hotel rooms?
No, I'm saying they placed the first order. And I don't understand why you're putting up so much resistance to this.
Ooh.
So anyways,
Well, I didn't want to just lay it down for you.
oh, I'm not doing this.
You guys are being very punny today.
Yes, I'm not
Hilarious.
doing this because we'll be going for like 10 minutes on that.
But I've got to haunt it to you. That was very clever.
I told you I'm not doing this.
We're not doing
And
it.
if you come back with R2, I'm not gonna. Don't even.
I was just going to say thank the maker. We're not doing this the whole night.
So anyhow,
Got a bad feeling about this.
figured I would start out today's show with a little bit of Star Wars video game news, some Battlefront. We're so technologically advanced. But
Quick, rewind the tape, Steve. We might need that again.
yeah. So EA today released some news about some upcoming Star Wars projects. The main one being that 2017 will see the release of Battlefront 2. They also said that a company called Visceral, they've been working on a Star Wars game, and it will be coming out sometime in 2018, and that it follows very closely the format of the canceled 1313, which that will be really cool because I don't know if you saw any of the stuff from 1313, Steve, but AJ, I know you and I saw that panel about the making of 1313, and it was awesome.
Oh,
It
that
was-
tech demo was fabulous.
Yeah, it was.
It was like third person, kind of like how Force Unleashed and stuff was,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was going to be a Boba Fett game. And they had like the opening sequence done, and they showed it to us, and then they showed us how it was literally like a 360-degree model on everything, and it was awesome. And then why they canceled that, I have no idea.
I think that was on the chopping block for a while because remember, Boba Fett was a very late addition to that game. Originally, it was just, it's going to be about the underworld on Coruscant, and then all of a sudden, no, we forgot to tell you, it's about Boba Fett.
Do we know that he was a late addition? I just thought they were keeping it secret because That was my understanding of it anyway.
The fact that they rolled out all this stuff without including the fact that Boba Fett was in it, and then later revealed Boba Fett was in it, it seems too coincidental. I think they were just trying to save the game from cancellation. So they were hoping that fan interest in a Boba Fett video game would keep the development going, but powers that be scrapped it anyway.
Well, I thought it was a bad decision, but the confusing thing to me is Battlefront 2 coming out next year, because with the season pass, they just did the Outer Rim update, and the next one is coming in a few months, and it's Bespin, and then in fall is going to be the Death Star, and then they have an unnamed update for early 2017. So if they're still doing all these updates to Battlefront, the first one, I really wonder if Battlefront 2 is going to be a completely different game, like the ones that you liked, that actually have a campaign and whatnot.
Oh, I would love that. I've frankly lost interest in the new Battlefront because there's no story mode. That's what hooks me. So if it's more than just a regular deathmatch format storyless shooter, I'm all for it. They
did say that one of the in the future updates, they're going to make a lot more offline content, because people have complained about that.
I'd love a story mode, kind of story mode like Battlefront 2 with the online multiplayer still. Because you were still doing teams, as you were progressing from clones to, well, you were the entire 501st going from clones, to the stormtroopers and stuff.
You know what they could really do now, which would be awesome, and I thought this was what they were going to do with Battlefront, was take the general format of Battlefront 2, which had all eras represented and all the planets and all that stuff, and then just develop them more and specialize them more. Because really, you could tell by the gameplay that whether you were droids or clones or troopers or rebels, it was all the same character models, just with different skins over top. And I would love to see, like, well, no, the droids are good at this, but they suck at this other dynamic, and vice versa. Like, have you ever played StarCraft, either of you?
No.
Okay, well, it's a similar format where you've got three main races, and they each have their own strengths and weaknesses, and you have to use your strategy to play off of that. So that's what Battlefront 2 was really lacking, was that dynamic difficulty system of strategy. So if they're going to take Battlefront 2 more in that direction, where they're going to customize each of the factions to have their own strengths and weaknesses, then great. I'm all for moving past Battlefront and going on to Battlefront 2.
See, I still play the first Battlefront. I was playing last night, actually. I love it. I really don't have a problem with it. I mean, I would prefer that there's a story mode, but I like it.
Don't get me wrong on that. It looks absolutely amazing. It's beautiful. It is the newest one, so you'd assume it would be the best looking Star Wars game that's ever come out, but it is. And it's a really good game. It just, when you're just doing online deathmatch stuff and you really have nothing to hold your interest other than trying to keep your KD ratio, on the positive side. It's like it's just one of those games that turns into a throwaway after a couple of months, like, because there's nothing that's keeping you interested other than it's Star Wars.
Yeah.
And like that's why I started jumping ship. I just recently went back and started playing GTA 5 again, because there were so many updates that came out that it feels like a brand new game again.
Right.
Because Rockstar is so good with they charge you for nothing. Like you pay $60 for the game, and every update that comes out you just get for free. So you never have to worry about missing things or whatever. So it just feels like a new game again. So you can kind of get rolling into that game. You remember the old crap, but it starts to come back to you. Like if I was to throw on Battlefront again today, like other than a couple of new maps and stuff, and maybe is there even a new like game mode or anything?
They have one called Extraction.
Okay,
they did that.
But like other than that, it's still just going to be jumping in and doing droid run, just the same as it was a couple of months ago when I stopped playing it the first time, and that's kind of where I'd lost my interest in it.
Yeah. I hope they broaden the scope.
Still a great game, though. Still an awesome game, though.
Yeah.
I hope they broaden the scope, because keeping it focused solely in the original trilogy period, it's just ignoring so much of the lore. I mean, we should have prequel stuff and definitely sequel trilogy stuff. I'm surprised they haven't rolled out anything for that yet.
Well, they have Jakku, but that's it.
You fight on Jakku, but you don't fight as the First Order and the Resistance. You still fight as rebels, and
that's probably all Battlefront 2 is going to be.
Well, that's what they said.
Yeah,
they said that they have new worlds that they can go on because of the new movies.
It's the same game, and they're just going to roll out the
it'll be like
First
on
Order and
Taco
stuff.
Donna and Jakku and stuff. Yeah, no, they said that that they'll have a bunch of new worlds to work with from the new movies, and that they don't have to rely on what's already there. And my thought, AJ, was the exact same as yours. Like, well, you haven't even touched on the prequel stuff, and there's a lot of cool. I mean, you could fight on Coruscant, you could fight on Mustafar. I mean, you could fight on all these different cool planets that they had. You know, Utapau would be a good one. Mm-hmm. There's all sorts of cool places that they could use, but
one thing that didn't really work in the prequel movies that does in the video games is the locations. The locations were so fantastical; they didn't come off well on screen at times, but those were made for video games.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I mean, Felucia. Would be. Is it Felucia? Is it?
Yeah, Felucia, classic example right there.
Okay, and yeah, I mean that all those bright colors and stuff would look really freaking cool.
Yeah, and the technology at the time really didn't allow it to be represented well in a video game. But now, I mean, look at what they did with Endor in this version of Battlefront.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
I would love to see the prequel locations in that kind of resolution.
Well, like Kashyyyk, because Kashyyyk was one of my favorite maps on Battlefront 2.
Oh, yeah.
That was awesome.
I loved the space battles. I was so pissed that they didn't bring those into the new
those
one.
were...
I loved always I'd take my stupid X-Wing or my TIE fighter and I'd fly into the other ship and destroy it from the inside out. I'd never blow them up from the outside.
Uh-huh.
Way more fun that way. Yeah,
it was always more fun going rogue just by yourself inside of the clone, or not the clone, the God, I'm stupid. Did I still sleep deprived? But yeah, just like when you go into the ships, it was always either you were rebels or whoever, and you just had a million people versus you because none of the other AI people would follow you into that stupid ship.
See, I would love space battles now because I'm awesome at Fighter Squadron.
And that's the thing, is they got the mechanics down really well. It's just that the content isn't as compelling as it used to be.
I just don't understand. Like, I must be an idiot of some kind, because I am like, and from the get-go, I was just dominant at Fighter Squadron, and I'm terrible on the ground. And literally everybody else that I know is like, oh, the ground is so much easier, and they're so much better on the ground. I'm like, what is so difficult about like flying around? I mean, like, how is it hard? To me, on the ground is difficult because you can't aim worth a damn.
Yeah, and you get lock on when you're flying in the.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't get it. I really don't get it.
I'm probably a little worse flying than I am, but I don't have any issues with it. Though I am the guy that flies around looking for the hero coins, so I can get the Slave One or the Falcon though constantly.
I can say that in the entire time the game's been out, I still have never flown as the Millennium Falcon or Slave One. I can never find it.
You just need to sign on and just go, I'm getting that coin. Like, don't even worry about getting any kills. Just search that coin, because if anybody should have been flying the Falcon at some point by now. This game is almost a year old and you haven't flown the Falcon yet.
Well, it's because all these like douchebags they do it. So many people do that right off the bat. I'm going to get the Falcon or the so I never can.
Because right when the map starts, just go down towards the ground. You'll see like 6 guys that are just kind of buzzing around down there. Those are all the guys that are looking for the coin.
I see the little icons and stuff like that, and every time I get one, it's like cooldowns, refresh faster. I'm like, no, damn it, I want the Millennium Falcon. Come on. I don't care if my cooldowns, like, I don't need that
I don't
crap.
care if I'm
already
cooling down. I'm not shooting anything because I'm searching for this freaking coin.
Yeah, I'm already kicking the ever-living hell out of everything that moves in the sky. I don't need a cooldown. I need the Millennium goddamn Falcon.
Is there an invincibility coin? Because that's the one I need.
I don't think so. Although there are shields on the X-Wing and the A-Wing, but I don't know what they're good for because they've never really saved me.
Yeah,
I'm like, I'm getting shot. I'll turn on the shields. Oh, I still died. What the hell was that? What's the point of that?
It's just like a shiny bubble to encase you while you die.
Reason to put extra graphics in the game.
R2 may be able to increase the power, but we apparently have R5.
Yeah, right. You know what else would have been cool is if they did more with the speeder bikes, because that test thing, like, here's how you learn how to do speeder bikes. Like, okay, then you never ever get on a speeder bike in the rest of the game.
They're worthless in a map.
Yeah,
so worthless.
They go so fast that
that
you
is the most
realistic
everything. Part of that game, because man, it is just like the movie, just crashing into trees.
Yeah.
Dude.
I would have loved if that was part of like a campaign or something where you have like maps where you have to go on like, speeder bikes and everything. That'd be awesome, but there's nothing like that.
The one thing that is hilarious about them, though, is anytime someone does manage to get on them, have you ever been run over by a speeder bike?
Yes.
It is so annoying. Oh, my God.
And they come at you so quick, too.
Yep.
You're just running, and then all of a sudden...
Yep.
Right, you're like, what the hell was that?
And then then the camera pans that little bit as you see the guy that killed you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the only thing it's good for, because if you're like actually going at speed trying to shoot people, you'll hit them with like maybe one laser.
Right.
You never kill anybody unless you just mow them down like they're a pedestrian in a crosswalk or something. I mean,
And that's where the GTA 5 comes in.
Since they already have the AI characters of the Ewoks running around up in the trees, I would love it if they put a couple on speeder bikes. Just make them hazards to everyone.
right? I still think they should let you kill like the Jawas that run around and the Ewoks. You should be able to shoot them.
That'd be great.
But you never can. I'm like, what fun is that? Collateral damage, man.
I've heard you can set a proximity bomb on the door where the Ewoks spawn, and they will blow up.
Well, I know what I'm trying next time.
Battlefront 2 is just going to be centered around Jakku, and it's going to be like The Sims, and all you have to do is farm for things and try to earn portions.
Get that big rhino thing to drink the water.
And the crazy thing is people play it all day like stupid World of Warcraft. I got 6 portions today. I'll trade you 3 of my green bread for 2.
You have earned the old beat-up X-Wing pilot helmet.
I have 6 portions, but I have no water.
So instead of
I
Hutt
can't make my
Can't make your
Insta-bread.
bread. You can't make Insta bread, yeah.
Damn it, I need to trade people.
So instead of Hutt contracts, you'll have Plut contracts.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll pay for him.
You're just playing for 6 hours, farming inside of an old Star Destroyer, picking up like a 1/4 ounce of metal to try to take back to Unkar Plut. Hey, you get 8th portion.
And then you get those people like, it's still better than Battlefront. No, it really is not, dude. You just basically got one little piece of space junk in 6 hours. That's all you did. That is not better.
So it has the same loot system as Destiny did. It came out a couple of years ago.
Right?
It's just a scavenger track from Force Awakens, just on loop over and over again. There's only like 2 minutes of music in the whole game. Bing, ding, 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 ding. God, enough already.
And it's only the one Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
So
There's like 90 people in your lobby that are all farming the same thing.
you have to like knock people out of the way to get like one blaster or something. I saw it first.
Then all the side games start where everybody just starts racing down the sand dune on the piece of metal.
All right. Like you're
first one
like you're
down
tubing.
gets a 1/4 portion.
It'd be like the worst game ever. And yeah, there'd be so many nerds like, this game is awesome. It's so realistic.
I would love it if they had
I'm
a
level
minigame.
99. It's been out for 8 hours.
They should Easter egg a minigame, though, where they take the bonus round from Street Fighter 2 where you're beating up the car. Put Tito up there instead.
Just
Put
beat the hell out of Tito.
Yeah, you're Ray with the stick, and Tito's up there, and you just got to beat the crap out of the Lugga Beast.
And you have to beat him up before he gets away, or else you don't get BB-8. Just change it up.
Noma!
Mostly for pots. So you mentioned something that kind of ties in with our topic for the evening when you mentioned the aesthetics of the worlds of the prequels. And you found an article today that ranked the Star Wars movies from worst to best. And I figure since we talked about the difference between episode 4 and 5 and which is the best, this is kind of a similar discussion, but I think we may have some disagreements with this list, and we'll come back to the list at another time, so we won't read the whole thing. But would you like to tell us of the 11 Star Wars movies? It's 11, right?
Yes.
11 movies that they have listed. Why don't you tell us what you found?
Okay. Well, for starters, here's how they get to 11. Steve, I don't know if you were down here when I was showing John the article earlier. Were you down here when we?
I probably was, but if I was paying attention, totally different question.
Okay, so where do you think they're getting another 4 movies outside of the episodes?
I'm going to assume they're going with maybe the Christmas special, the
Yes.
Ewok movie,
Yes.
God, what else would they be going with?
The Clone Wars animated movie.
Ah, okay.
Yes, that was released in theaters, so it counts. And the second Ewok movie. So Caravan of Courage, the Battle for Endor, the Clone Wars movie, and the holiday special are all in play with this article.
Ooh.
And curiously enough... oh, God. And, well, okay, it's not really much of a spoiler. Guess which one they ranked as the worst.
The holiday special, obviously.
Thank you. There's two of you in the room. I was hoping someone was going to speak up.
For a second, I had a brain fart.
He was looking. I was waiting for him to say something so I could go Phantom Menace.
I'm going. What are the Ewok movies called? Oh wait, the holiday special's in there.
Yeah. So holiday special is the worst. But the interesting thing is, of the episodes, which one did you think that they ranked the worst?
Well, for the purposes of our discussion, I would have to say episode 2.
You would be correct. Because there's always a debate about 1 versus 2, which is the weakest of the series, and that's a whole different thing because I think there's a lot of redeeming features of both. But it's just amazing how much people love to crap on episode 2.
It just seems like episode 2's gotten less popular as it's been out, whereas it's the opposite for Phantom Menace.
Yeah, I'll read off the summary on this article here and explain why they think that this movie is the worst of the 7 episodic films so far. It goes on to say, debate will continue to rage about whether Attack of the Clones or The Phantom Menace is the worst of the official Star Wars movies. But we're putting our foot down. Attack of the Clones is worse, and for a wide variety of reasons. Visually, this was the film where George Lucas essentially abandoned practical sets, making it appear as though his cast is walking around a shiny video game environment most of the time. Plot-wise, it's a convoluted junk pile. Character-wise, it's a story of a love affair so powerful that it essentially destroyed the Republic, but the two lovers are dispassionate wooden planks. Poor Hayden Christensen. He's not a bad actor, but in Attack of the Clones, he has nothing to work with, and he reads every single line like he's playing a serial killer on Ambien. He stalks his childhood crush and coerces her into loving him. He murders children, and she thinks it ain't no thing. Even Natalie Portman, a legitimately great actor, is toppled by the overbearing dialogue and contrived picnics and awkward stares. The Obi-Wan storyline is actually an interesting addition to the Star Wars universe, full of conspiracy and intrigue, and on its own, it probably could have held our attention. But the unbridled, sleep-inducing awfulness of Attack of the Clones' other half could sink a battleship. This movie never stood a chance against it.
What? Okay, I have an issue with that right off the bat. When did he murder children? If you're talking about Tusken Raider kids, that's a dumb point to make.
That must be what they're talking about because it wasn't until 3 that he slaughtered younglings.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess.
Well, that is a pretty.
Before we get into this, tell what rank of the 11 was that?
That was 9th.
Okay, so what was 10th?
10th was. Let me scroll here a bit. That would have been Caravan of Courage.
Okay, so what
that
did
was
they
the
rate?
First Ewok movie.
What did they rate as better? Obviously, the 7
everything else.
I was going to say obviously the other 6 episodes are better.
What was 8th place?
Oh, what was just ahead of it?
Yeah.
Okay, just ahead of Attack of the Clones
probably
was
Phantom
Menace.
Okay,
that's right.
Oh my lord! So wait a minute. So they put one of the Ewok movies and the Clone Wars animated movie ahead of episodes 1 and 2?
Correct.
Dude, the Clone Wars movie was the biggest piece of shit ever. Pardon my edit requirement there, but that movie was horrible. What was that? Ziro the Hutt? Was that the one? Like the gay hut or whatever? The purple one? Wasn't that?
Yeah.
That was atrocious.
Oh, you mean Ziro the Hutt?
You do some of the voices really good.
Well, just because you don't like the way they made their new characters doesn't mean they're not entertaining.
Ooh. Oh, that just brings...
Hello there! I did no such thing.
Sounds like something out of wrestling. Dude, that movie was horrible. How could you possibly rate that ahead of episodes 1 and 2? How?
Well, do you want to stay on episode 2, or do you want to just go through the list here? Because I can read it.
Oh my god! I mean, obviously they're going to put episodes, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 as the top as the top 5.
Yeah.
But okay, so what does it say about the Clone Wars movie that, like, how is that possible? That movie is god awful.
Okay, here's some of its redeeming features according to the article.
They'll say the Clone Wars is better because Hayden Christensen wasn't in it.
Oh, if
everybody
likes
the crap on him.
Yeah, if they go with that take, this is instantly garbage.
And you know how Samuel L. Jackson and Natalie Portman, who are great actress, basically did nothing in episode 2, according to some of these people. Like, they say Natalie Portman stood there with her mouth open and just stared at Hayden Christensen the majority of the time.
Most of the time, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like they throw that in there.
Okay, here's some of the redeeming features of Clone Wars that put it ahead of Attack of the Clones on the list. It says it has a little personality to it, which it says is more than can be said for Attack of the Clones or Phantom Menace.
Horribly incorrect.
It says the characters banter believably and solve their problems cleverly, which kind of true. I mean, they walk walkers up the side of a cliff, which I don't know if that's believably or unbelievably, but it's definitely a new approach.
It's unbelievably. That's like spinning lightsabers.
Certain things
it's like flying with spinning lightsabers.
Certain things work in animation that don't work in live action. That much is true.
You mean like the laws of physics?
Like the Jetsons car chase at the beginning of episode
pulleys.
2?
Yeah. they had pulleys and cables, okay? They weren't just walking up,
All right, I guess I'll give you that part.
But here's the part that's going to raise your hackles. Voice actor Matt Lanter is a better Anakin Skywalker than Hayden Christensen ever was, and only because he bothers to inflect.
Okay.
And rant.
All right.
Short of a rant, I really feel like I'm probably in the minority that says I really did not. Like, I can't say that Hayden Christensen was amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but the amount of hate, like, I feel is completely overdone.
In episodes 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah.
Well, see, I didn't think so. The reason, first of all,
like, he wasn't great, but this overwhelming hatred of this guy is the worst actor in the history of actors.
That I thought you meant the hatred he portrayed in the character.
No. Like,
I agree
I feel
with
like he probably 2 might be the crappiest one, obviously, but I think he kind of redeemed it a little bit. In episode 3, you know, it's I just. Like I said, not the greatest actor by any stretch, but just people who act like he is the worst actor walking the face of the earth is just silly, honestly.
I think that the actors in that movie, like whenever it craps on the love story, I don't have a problem with it being a love story. The dialogue was horrid.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing. I love the prequels and I love the story of it, but the actual dialogue of it is really pretty. That love scene in front of the fireplace is just holy crap. I'm like, whoa.
Usually, I mean, Star Wars is campy and corny and plays off of so many other genres at a time, but it usually masks it in a somewhat entertaining way. This just exposed melodrama to a degree that was not called for.
Yeah, the dialogue wasn't clever. It was very heavy-handed, I think. And
you're in my very soul.
Yeah, I can't breathe. Like, oh, come on, dude. Really? I mean, and you already know it's a love story, so I didn't think they needed that huge scene of exposition.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have just, been like, man, this sucks. Like, I'm still really into you. Oh, we can't do that. Could have shortened it and made it a little more, tongue in cheek, I think. But
yeah, there was a lot of tell me instead of show me, and that's never good.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, saying Matt Lanter is a better Anakin Skywalker, all right, personal preference. I think they're both fine. I can't say that one's better than the other.
Yeah, I don't think that's a fair comparison anyway, because I remember reading up on the series when it first debuted, and they purposely, especially at the beginning of the series, stripped away all of the dubious nature of Anakin. They didn't even want to worry about the fact that he was going to one day become Darth Vader. They wanted to build up the heroic side of him because the villain was already known.
Yeah.
So it was very easy to play him with more charisma and energy.
Yeah.
Just because he didn't have the burden of that little foreboding shadow waiting in the wings.
Well, you had 6 seasons of Clone Wars to develop that character, whereas in the movies you had 4.5 hours. So I mean, what are you going to show in 4.5 hours? It has to be a quick thing, and that's actually one of the things that I liked when, like you say, everybody hates on Hayden Christensen and they hate on the prequels and everything. I go back to my opinion that I liked how they portrayed it when everyone's like, "Who's the whiny kid?" Well, yeah, because you can't just make him have this little kid be a total asshole, and then he's a even bigger jerkwad in episode 2. Then he's evil in episode 3. That's stupid. It's just evil guy, evil guy, evil guy. Okay, now I'm the evil guy.
Yeah, he aged like 15 years in 3 movies. Like what did you, like you said, you have 4.5, but roughly 6 hours between the 3 of them. Yeah, like how much explaining, or how much detail are you expecting?
And you can't have him be this like noble guy and just be super noble, and all of a sudden, I'm bad. Because then it's like, well, why? What is that? And so they had to do something with the character, and I thought it was fine. He's kind of a prick, and then he falls in love, and because of his attachment, he's susceptible to the dark side, which we know is exactly how you fall to the dark side. So he was manipulated through his emotion, and there you go.
This is one of the debates we always have, though, is the difference between, is the story no good or was its portrayal no good? And I agree that all the elements of the story were solid. I like the idea of someone falling to evil for all the right reasons. But the movies themselves and the way the performances came off were not very good.
Well, again, I go back to there being the dialogue. I mean, if you're handed crap, you can only do so much with it.
Yeah, I think in Attack of the Clones especially, where Hayden really fell short was he was creepy throughout. Like, we never got the charismatic part of him to believe that anyone could fall in love with him like that. Like, he was always just that skeezy kid that you weren't really sure if you could trust him. And then all of a sudden, Padme's like, I've been dying a little every day since we met. Like,
yeah,
what?
I could see that argument.
Yeah, it's one of the complaints on this website that I'm looking at right now. Somebody pointed out the fact that I've never paid attention to this, that Padme never confesses loving Anakin until after he admits to slaughtering the...
Yeah.
That's not true. It was right before they were going to die.
Right, and he had already slaughtered the Tuskens and freaked out in the garage and said that he slaughtered them all.
They're Tusken Raiders. Who gives a damn?
See, they're animals.
Right, but that's just one of... That's another one of the mass complaints is,
they killed his mother. What would you do? I mean, come on, dude. I mean, they killed his mother. What's he supposed to do? Send him a postcard? I wish you wouldn't have done that. What's he going to do?
And I've noticed a lot of people crapping on most of the Camino scenes.
I thought those were... I had no problem with the Camino scenes. I mean, the Kaminoans looked a little weird in terms of their delivery.
And people complaining about how Obi-Wan basically forgot how to use the Force while he was fighting Jango Fett. The telekinesis when he dropped the lightsaber. And
that's generally one of the highlights of the movie. Most people like that best of most of it.
Well, from what I was reading, people are complaining because they're like, oh, well, usually filmmakers will use rain to cover up flaws in their CGI because they're too lazy to clean it up. So they're like, oh, all that rain, they were just covering flaw after flaw after flaw, and, the rain didn't even help anything, and Obi-Wan forgot how to use the Force when he was fighting Jango, and blah. Like, it's honestly the majority of everything I've read for the hatred is people that really are just fishing.
Yeah.
Like, instead
it's nitpicking.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I might be in the minority. Like, I sit here and I watch the movies, and I go, yeah, I might have Phantom Menace as like the worst of the 7, like whatever. But like to sit there and try to nitpick and pull it apart, it's like just watch it for what it is. Like how about instead of trying to figure out the backstory, just watch what George gave you for 2.5 hours.
That's why I like the prequels.
Like, just deal with it. Sometimes it's really not worth trying to dig into something that's probably not there.
Yeah.
It's
well, and say, oh, he forgot how to use the Force. As soon as he comes out the door, Jango Fett's shooting lasers at him. What we see it now.
Well, if he was really strong in the Force, he should have known it was going to happen.
Well, okay, whatever. I mean, again, like Steve said, they're fishing.
Lightsaber, and he said just been able to use the Force to pick it back up.
Well, he did. That's what he did. Remember, he went down and Jango Fett had like wrapped the thing around his hands, and he went like this to get it back, and then Jango like yanked them away. So he tried to do that.
I'm good with most of that fight. The biggest problems I have are the fall and the cable stuff. So I'm like, dude, that thing would have just ripped his hands right off or cut right through him. Like, that was a little bit ridiculous, but I loved seeing all the Mando weapons. I loved, the jetpack and missile play, and just, it was a great fight.
Well, some people complain, because everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of people will sit there and assume that Force users should just do like what Vader did in Episode 4. Like you should just choke people from across the room, Jedi or not. You should never be in danger of losing a fight except to other Force users, because you should just be able to do whatever to those people at all times.
See, people like that, I want to go through the original trilogy. Like, you do realize a lot of this ridiculousness is in the original trilogy too.
Yeah.
But because you have such a boner for the original trilogy and you have such hatred for the prequels,
and it's
you're just being
the cool
dick.
thing to do, to hate the prequels.
Yeah, I always liken it to the argument in the Van Halen fandom between David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar, and people that just, because they grew up with Roth, they just blindly hate Sammy Hagar. And then Roth came and did these last couple tours, and his voice was absolute garbage. He sounded horrible. And they just came out, it sounds better than ever. No, he doesn't. He doesn't sound better than ever. He's absolutely terrible. Just because you're a fan of it,
you're justifying your fandom, and that's it.
All you're doing is trying to crap on Sammy Hagar. And it's like that with the prequels, because it isn't the original trilogy. Oh, it sucks. And I hate that. It's just so stupid, because you can nitpick all of it. You can nitpick everything.
I think the burden of the prequels is that they had such a legacy to live up to, because the whole point of having the prequels was to explain how things got to where they were for the original trilogy. So unless you tell one epic story and do it masterfully, it's not going to live up to the story it's trying to tell.
Yeah, and the original trilogy was so legendary, the prequels never really had a chance anyways. They just didn't.
True, because everyone expected to walk in and get more of 4, 5, and 6, and that's not what George gave them.
Yeah, which goes back to my argument about Episode 7. Everybody's saying it's so brilliant. No, they cash grabbed. That's the prequels took chances. Episode 7 went, everybody hates the prequels, so we're just going to crap on them and redo what was in Episode 4 because everybody loved it. So how is that great?
Well, I give credit.
Anybody could do that.
I give credit for risk taking, but not all the risks paid off.
I agree with that, but I give a lot more credit to risk taking than I do, okay, well, I'm just going to redo Episode 4 because everybody liked it, and then everyone's going to think I made a great Star Wars movie. Not really.
Yeah, as part of my reading for this and further down the list, I kind of disagree with some of their points for ranking Episode 7 so high. But let's get back to Episode 2.
Yeah. Now, okay, so
one of the main things of Episode 2, and this is widely known, is that movie was in a total state of flux through the whole production. Even it's widely documented the script was going through rewrites and things were cut, and there's so much extra material in the deleted scenes because even George didn't even know what was going to make the final cut until like weeks before.
Yeah.
So I do think that some of the blame for this movie does come down to just simply not having a clear vision for it while it was being made.
Yeah. It's definitely the most different of all of them because it's more like a spy story. I mean, if you really think about it, like most of the other movies are pretty linear. But this one's got like multiple things going on, and it's really and I get like Empire Strikes Back. You had the Luke on Dagobah, and then the Millennium Falcon crew trying to get away from the Empire. So that was two different stories. But I thought that Episode 2 was very different because you had a love story, and then you had a spy story. Like it wasn't just like a space movie. It was a different kind of movie, but put into the Star Wars universe.
I've said it a few times on previous shows. They did what needed to be done. Obviously, Episode 1 had the beginnings of everything, and Qui-Gon and Anakin, and feeling the Force and blah, blah, blah. And Episode 3 had that final turn into Vader. It's like Episode 2 was really just what they needed to put there to tie things together, good or bad. You needed to progress that story, and you had to hit specific plot points going into 3. So it was filler. Like it wasn't meant to be the greatest Star Wars film of all time. It was meant to tie 1 and 3 together.
But usually the middle of a trilogy is the one that's easiest to get right because you have nothing that you need to tie up, and everything's set up for you. So it's very easy to take what already came, turn it on its ear, and then leave it unresolved for the third one to handle.
Well, that's like in a normal franchise, but does that hold true when you're talking prequel era?
I don't think so. And I was
the time jump. The time jump is what does it.
Well, the time jump does it, but also I think what was
episode
difficult
3 would have been exactly what you said, because it's the tie to the two trilogies.
Well, that's the problem though, is that you already know what happens in episode 3.
Yeah, it's not like when you're watching. It's not like when you're watching these Marvel movies. Well, I guess Marvel's probably a bad thing, but like
no, it's a good example.
The new Bourne movie coming out and stuff. These movies that have no the 47 Fast and the Furious movies that are out.
Yeah,
like things that don't have we don't have a knowledge.
You don't know
of
what comes
beginning
next
and ending like we did with Star Wars.
Yeah. So, and I think that's why it was difficult, because you already, and it's again one of the reasons I liked it was because you already know how it's going to end. So it's up to you to make getting there interesting and not just a simple good guy to bad guy story. And there was good guys and bad guys in the galaxy, and the bad guys won and became the Empire. I mean, you had to do something different to not make it that stale story that you've seen a million times over. So it was behind the 8 ball in that, because you already knew where it came out, and I had no problem with what they did with it.
I feel like episode 2 kind of undermined episode 1, though, because nothing really carried forward from 1 into 2. You had new villains. You had basically a new conflict, because once episode 1 wrapped, you had everybody just standing there like a retread of the episode 4 ending scene.
Except for the everlasting gobstopper.
Right.
Nice.
So that was kind of like a self-contained story, and none of those characters or plot threads really dangled except for Palpatine. That was the only thing that carried through
and
from
Anakin.
1 to 2.
And
Anakin you could have just picked up with in the elevator at the beginning of episode 2 and not needed any of episode 1 to explain what was going on there. Right there it covers, I haven't seen her in 10 years, Master. I've thought about her every day. Okay, good. So we know we've got a lovelorn Padawan kid for some chick he hasn't seen in a decade. Good. End of story. We don't need episode 1's details to inform us of that exchange right there.
Well, not for the love story or anything, but
and that's the key plot point of episode 2.
Yeah, but I think you need the details in episode 1 to explain why this guy is like the super Jedi. Because
that could have been covered in 2 as well, I think.
It would have been a much longer movie. Because if he's going to become Darth Vader, I don't think you can just gloss over, like show him in the elevator in episode 2 and then go, remember when I was a little kid and you found me because I had high midichlorians? Oh yeah, you're this great Jedi. Like
you can find a better way to do it than that. But I mean, he goes back to Tatooine anyway in episode 2, so you could write whatever backstory you need right there. Like most of the Tatooine scenes play out just fine without episode 1 being there first.
You could make an argument that you could make episodes 1 and 2 into one movie. I would give credence to that, because I've read that before, that people say it could have been one movie. But I don't
not with the time jump. How are you going to explain you've got like 6 to 7-year-old Anakin and then you've got 15 to 16-year-old Anakin all in the same movie? That's not something that Star Wars does, though.
Well,
I think you could have just picked up the story at episode 2 and had 3 movies to tell what they crammed into 2. That might have helped.
Well, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, you have a point. I'm not going to discredit that. I think you definitely have a point. I won't argue it. I don't have a problem with it, but I can definitely see where people would have a problem with it.
Like Dooku there's so many characters in 2 that I wish had more time to breathe. Like, I mean, Dooku is really a fascinating guy and needed Clone Wars to flesh that character out, because for being as powerful as he was and how prominent he was in episode 2, you'd have assumed you would have at least heard rumblings about the guy in the first movie. That was really like out of left field to all of a sudden hear about this Count Dooku character and find out he's old and apparently has a very rich backstory of being a Jedi and then being the leader of the entire Separatist movement. Like, why wasn't that something that was in the first episode?
Well, I think that's something that can be said about the prequels throughout, is that you have a lot of characters that need more time to breathe and to be developed. But I think that speaks to the fact that some really kick-ass characters were created. I mean, Dooku, Qui-Gon Jinn, Darth Maul. I mean, you have characters that were so they were really great characters that you wanted to know more about. They weren't just like throwaway characters, really. So I thought that was the strength of it. And I mean, you could say that they weren't fleshed out enough in the little screen time they have. Okay, I mean, to each their own. I didn't have a problem with it, but I thought that they really created some really strong characters. I mean, think about it. People still really like Qui-Gon Jinn. Darth Maul is an obvious one. You know, you don't really hear too many people complaining about Count Dooku. There was a lot of stuff, you know?
The fact that the prequels exist because Vader needed a backstory, and then you just dangle that Dooku used to be a Jedi and leave it at that. They made 3 movies out of the demand for backstory. So then to put characters in there that have a backstory that's alluded to and then not explained is a weird double standard, I think.
Well, how much are they going to explain, though, dude? You can't.
I'm still waiting for that story to find out more details about what led Dooku to leave the Jedi Order.
Yeah, between that and we brought up wanting to know, about Mace and his backstory and stuff. So yeah, there is a handful of characters that you would like to see where their bases ended up before episode 2 started.
Well, the whole Sifo Dyas thing.
Yeah, I swear to God, sometime on this show and soon we are going to figure out the origin of the clones and Order 66, because even with the stories that they've told to try to flesh it out more in the Clone Wars, it's still muddy as hell.
Really?
We'll just make it up ourselves. We keep giving these guys such good ideas. We just sold them an awesome video game earlier,
right?
About collecting quarter portions and stuff.
Right, the Jakku Sims.
Yeah.
Jakku
Sims.
Didn't you say that the
little green diamonds hanging above all our heads?
Those are Kyber crystals.
Yeah.
AJ, didn't you say that the creation of the clones and stuff was in Order 66 was addressed in the latest some of the last episodes of the Clone Wars cartoon?
Yeah, 6th season.
I gotta start watching that again. I keep watching an episode, then I forget. Then I watch an episode, then I forget.
You watch a few episodes, then you're like, "Oh, I'm 8 episodes behind on something else," and you watch that, and then you forget about going back onto Netflix again to watch Clone Wars.
But the good news about those arcs is that they're pretty self-contained. You don't need the rest of the series to make sense of those. So if you want to just skip ahead to watch those, you're not going to be like left out in the dark about anything.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to start watching
better
that.
Idea than trying to get through it all then.
Yeah. So, I mean, all the complaints about episode 2, I didn't share them.
So, okay, so let's talk about the origin of the clones for a second, because that is kind of a muddy topic. It's not really made clear. Do you feel that was good storytelling and leaving a mystery, or it was poor storytelling in that all the details were there but weren't communicated well enough for the audience to get them? Because I know they like to dangle plot threads out there, but frankly, every time I go back and watch it, I'm still scratching my head not knowing if I've missed something or if they just didn't tell me.
No, I don't think anything was really missing. I don't think.
Dooku's speech is so confusing when he's talking to Obi-Wan, because he's telling the plain truth, I think. Or maybe he's just lying through his teeth because that's what Sith do.
I thought it was cool because of that. Because I wasn't sure. Like, okay, if Obi-Wan says, "Okay, I'm with you," is he all of a sudden like back on the other side because he kind of thinks that that's who's going to win? Or I mean,
right?
I kind of liked it. Like he was playing both sides. It was very ambiguous, and I thought that was kind of cool.
I've always wondered that. Steve, what do you think? If Obi-Wan had actually agreed to join Dooku, like bought into his line, and then been like, "Oh, well, yeah, okay, we've really got to do something about this Sith Lord guy. He sounds bad." Do you think that Dooku would have actually teamed up with Obi-Wan against Palpatine, or was that just a way to steal one more guy from the Jedi Order?
That's weird, because you think about some of the stuff that I have seen in Clone Wars, and the animated stuff, where Dooku almost does play both sides of the field at some points. So it's like it seems like Dooku's one of those guys that it probably depends on what day or what happened to him earlier in the day. It's going to depend on what kind of ass hat he's going to be when he talks to
goes
you
where the wind
day.
blows, basically.
Yeah, it's really not made clear, especially because you said Clone Wars. He's got Asajj Ventress, which is a very gray area as far as, is she an apprentice, is she an assassin, and then replaces her with Savage Opress. So he's always got someone that's his underling, and it's like the Inquisitors in Rebels, where it's a very gray area between apprentice and weapon/tool.
Yeah.
You want to see if you can figure this thing out again? We'll do it as a group.
Oh boy.
What thing?
Got 2 minutes of him talking to Obi-Wan. Try to figure it out again.
Traitor.
Oh no, my
Oh
friend.
no, my friend. This is a mistake, a terrible mistake. They've
Love
gone
Christopher
too far.
Lee's voice.
This is madness.
Yeah.
I thought you were the leader here, Dooku.
This had nothing to do with me, I assure you. I will petition immediately to have you set free.
Well, I hope it doesn't take too long. I have work to do.
May I ask why a Jedi Knight is all the way out here on Geonosis?
I've been tracking a bounty hunter named Jango Fett. Do you know him?
There are no bounty hunters here that I am aware of. The Geonosians don't trust them.
Well, who can blame them? But he is here, I can assure you.
It's a great pity that our paths have never crossed before, Obi-Wan. Qui-Gon always spoke very highly of you. I wish you were still alive. I could use his help right now.
Qui-Gon Jinn would never join you.
Don't be so sure, my young Jedi. You forget that he was once my apprentice, just as you were once his. He knew all about the corruption in the Senate, but he would never have gone along with it if he had learned the truth as I have.
The truth.
The truth. What if I told you that the Republic was now under the control of the Dark Lord of the Sith?
No, that's not possible. The
It
Jedi
really does
would be
look
aware
like
of it.
Jesus floating
The
there,
dark
too.
side of the Force
Yeah, he
has
does.
clouded their vision, my friend. Hundreds of senators are now under the influence of a Sith Lord called Darth Sidious.
I don't believe you.
The Viceroy of the Trade Federation was once in league with this Darth Sidious. But he was betrayed 10 years ago by the Dark Lord. He came to me for help. He told me everything. You must join me, Obi-Wan. And together, we will destroy the Sith.
I will never join you, Dooku.
Power play.
Mic drop.
It may be difficult to secure your release.
See, here's what's brilliant about that. What's brilliant about that from a storytelling standpoint is that Dooku lays out the exact truth to Obi-Wan, knowing that it's so preposterous, there's no way he's going to believe it, which instantly puts the Jedi off the track because they're ruling out the actual truth first thing.
Yeah. But there's also the whole thing of, Sith apprentices trying to overthrow their masters. And if Dooku were to get Obi-Wan on his side under the guise of we're taking out this Sith guy, he would then have, a partner to do it with. And then he would be taking over the Republic because he would make sure the Separatists win whatever and take over, and then he's got Obi-Wan in his pocket. So I think it was a power play.
Do you think that Palpatine actually cared which side won? He's running both.
That's a good question. If he's running both, so I don't think it would really matter. I just think it would be easier if the Republic wins because people that's what people believe in. The Separatists were kind of seen as the Separatists were kind of seen like the Axis, and the Republic was like the Allies.
Yeah.
So I think it was kind of like
Where he was running both. It's almost like who could he just open his mouth and have more control over?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if he really cared because he was going to be in power regardless. But it was who was going to be easier for him to control once that faction was under power.
Well, also, let's say the Separatists won, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, I'm on the side of the Separatists." Like no one's going to buy into it because like, wait a minute, you were on the other side, now you're on this side. Like I think it would have had to have been the Republic because that's who he was in charge of, and that's the actual government that's in place. It would be like in the Civil War if the South won and Abraham Lincoln all of a sudden was like, oh, just kidding. Now I'm gonna go run. I'm with the South, man. Everyone's like, what? You were on this side. You can't be going back and forth.
Fourth quarter conversion to the light side.
Exactly. Yeah. No. It would have to have been the Republic.
Well, then I wonder why Dooku would side with him, because Dooku is running the Separatists, knowing that his boss is running the Republic. So he's a stunt. He's a stunt player. He's just playing the role of the loser.
Yeah, but
it's like play acting.
Well, because he's already got a place next to Palpatine.
Provided that the Jedi don't catch up with him and kill him, as they keep trying to do because they're at war.
Well, Palpatine's not really worried about that. He's only worried about his own aspirations.
No, what I'm saying is Dooku should be worried about that. So the fact that he got Dooku to do that for him, I mean, what kind of a promise
Maybe
did he
that's
make?
why Dooku was going behind his back on Obi-Wan, or with Obi-Wan, to see if he could throw the whole thing over.
Yeah.
So instead of being
it's that power play.
Guy number 2 on the list, he gets Obi-Wan, and they throw everything over. He's number 1.
There was and I haven't seen it since, but I remember vividly, in a TV spot or a trailer or something for Episode 3, when Anakin had the lightsabers at Dooku's neck, and Dooku looks at Palpatine and says, "But you said you would grant me clemency."
Oh,
and so that right there, that one little thing, and I haven't seen it anywhere since, but I know I saw it because you don't just. I saw a trailer that had the word clemency in it. That's not exactly a common word in conversation. So, I think he was promised a spot, and he was just duped by Palpatine because Palpatine is the ultimate evil, dark side Sith Force using guy. So he would screw anybody.
That's actually on his business cards.
Yeah, right.
Sheev Palpatine, ultimate dark side Force using Sith Lord guy.
That cookie looks like the Death Star. But yeah, so I just think again, I think with Dooku it was a power play, and Palpatine was basically going to use the existing government to get himself in power, because that's where most of the galaxy would fall in line. Because the Separatists were seen as rogues and unorganized. They were against order and government and all that kind of stuff. And so people, Padme, she was the perfect rube. She fell for it all. I'm sticking with the Republic no matter what. And then all of a sudden, Palpatine reorganizes it into the First Empire, and
yeah, there's a subplot that should have been retained in Episode 3. I loved all those scenes where she's like. Well, actually, it didn't get cut when she was talking to Anakin about, what if the democracy we're fighting for no longer exists? And that was a great subplot. I wish they would have kept that in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Episode 2 with Dooku, the guy had to engineer an entire war knowing he was going to lose it. That's an incredible gamble right there.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean he's going to lose his life.
Well, okay, let's play this out. Let's say that he gets Obi-Wan to join him and he takes down Palpatine. Do you think the Republic is just going to let him off the hook then? You just assassinated the leader of their government. You are a marked man forever. He is never getting off the hook. There is no way that defeating Palpatine or serving him can ever fully benefit him. Unless he loses the war like he's supposed to, comes into the fold, Palpatine works him in somehow, and then succeeds Palpatine.
Yeah,
if he's ever linked to Palpatine's demise, he's public enemy number 1.
Well, yeah, but I think he would be accepted based on he used to be a Jedi.
Oh, the redeemed Jedi, so to speak.
Yeah, you could do stuff like that. You could make a story out of that, but I
don't know. Going back to your allies and Axis thing, that's like Mussolini coming on board and being like, well, he was with Hitler, but now he's on our side.
Well, it's happened throughout history, though. Russia was one of our major allies in World War II. Then all of a sudden, 10 years later, 15 years later, we got the Cold War. People switch sides. It happens. So, there's, real life precedent for it.
Yeah, okay. I'll give you that much.
And who's to say that Palpatine had Dooku getting all this set up, and then when it's all set up, he just kills him? I mean, look, he found Anakin, and then was like, "Oh, the hell with this, man! As soon as this kid gets powerful, he's my new apprentice." So he,
Okay.
So who's to say he would have even survived?
I'm still amazed at the ineptitude of the Jedi Order in general in Episode 2. I get that they were supposed to be pompous and, so full of themselves that they couldn't possibly be wrong, but Jocasta knew. I mean, what the hell? Obi-Wan's got all the evidence that there's a planet there, and she's like, nope, couldn't be possible. Nope.
If a planet does not appear in our records, it does not exist.
And
listen, bitch, there's a planet here. A 10-year-old kid figured it out, you crusty old bat. Now give me the friggin' records.
Right, exactly. Like, she's like, nope, no way. And then he just goes into the temple with Yoda, and the kid's like, oh, yeah, well, it just means that someone erased the record.
Yeah.
and of course, he has to go all the way to Yoda and the younglings to get that answer. Like, he couldn't figure that out for himself.
Back in my day, if a planet didn't appear in the archives, it didn't exist. Flippity flew.
Right.
Figure Obi-Wan would have noticed the whiteout in the middle of the galactic 3D map when he looked it up in the archives. Jocasta's holding a piece of paper in front of nope, nothing over here.
Right? There's just like a big scrawled messy handwriting. No planet here on the map.
It's a planet with a wooden sign sticking out of it like an old road runner.
Like Looney Tunes. Oh man. Yeah, no,
Obi-Wan's like, this is no planet.
Yeah. Oh, nothing
no
there.
Moon.
Yeah, no, I think the one you brought up an interesting point about the Jedi ineptitude. The one thing I thought was dumb was, maybe we should inform the Senate of our ability to use the Force has diminished. Like, what are you, like a basketball player at the end of your career? Like, you can't hit a 3-pointer anymore? You can't,
right.
Can't dunk? I mean, what is that? Is the Force like sporting ability now? Or, I mean, that was kind of weird.
You only get so much in your life, and they're all just running on E.
Yeah. I mean,
it's like in Family Guy when they crack the lightsaber and it goes limp.
Yeah, right. They could have explained it in a different way, and it would have been okay. Like, our ability to use the Force is clouded by our arrogance.
Yeah,
something like that would have been better than just, we're not using the Force so good anymore.
Yeah, I just love how Obi-Wan is smart enough to track all this stuff down in one movie, and then the rest of the council basically just sits there and goes, how didn't we see this?
Yeah.
How is that even possible? Like, okay, so apparently they're all stronger Jedi than he is, but he's the only one with a clue. I mean, you'd think Yoda and Mace might at least have an inkling, and then Obi-Wan would just confirm it or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Yoda knows when somebody farts across the galaxy, sensing a disturbance in the Force, but, he can't figure that out.
Right. All right, so on this list, read not the episode 1 thing, but the Ewok movie. Like, I want to hear their reasons why
why this is better.
Yeah, oh my God, who wrote this list?
Okay, now remember, I've got to jump ahead 3 spots in the list because they put episode 1 and the Clone Wars movie between that and Attack of the Clones. So we're going to go all the way up. Wait a minute.
So episodes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7
are in the top.
And then the one immediately after that is an Ewok movie?
Yes.
Who is this person? All right, we got to get our Skype working because I want to get these people that write these articles on the phone and be like, hi, what in the holy hell were you thinking?
So you want to talk to William Bibbiani?
Yeah. I want William Bibbiani on my show, damn it. I'm like, William, how can you tell me that an Ewok movie is better than 2 of the prequels? My God.
Okay, well,
I'll
point, tell you,
sir.
I'll tell you how. And actually, it makes me want to go back and watch the second one. The first one is just unwatchable. I have them on DVD, but the first one is unwatchable. The second one might actually be somewhat watchable based on this synopsis. Check this out. Okay, so Battle for Endor is the second Ewok movie. 1985 it came out. Okay, well, forgive the creepy eyes on the Ewoks. Remember how they gave them, different contact lenses?
The year is 1985.
Okay, I'm scrolling back up so JT can look over my shoulder at the picture of creepy
All right, let me
Ewoks. So these are the creepy Ewok guys that I was talking about.
Oh, with like the tiny little I'm on drugs pupils.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they went from the blank black lenses to trying to give them irises, and it just didn't really work out too well.
So basically, in the Ewok movies, we had cokehead Ewoks.
Yeah, basically. So
Turbo Tebow.
In Ewoks, the battle for Endor, here's what they say, is not about a battle for Endor. It's about a battle for the forest moon of Endor. Yeah, like who cares? But whatever. That's not really what's important here. What's important is that the second made-for-TV Ewoks movie is a dramatic improvement on the first, with an engaging storyline and some pretty darned impressive visual effects. Giant monsters, cool transformations, nifty battles, and more. It's a neat-looking, lively film. Should we just stop right there since you're already laughing?
No, Steve just did an impression.
I'm just bringing up pictures of the Ewoks of this movie. They got the high beams on, dude. They are on some type of coke, man.
A made-for-TV movie.
Well, here's where I think everybody's ears will perk up at this. Okay. Yeah, the Ewok stuff was TV release. That wasn't theatrical release.
Well, I know that, but
check this out. Because I don't remember anything about these movies except for the fact that they're pretty awful. But the second one picks up in a pretty good spot. Check this out. As for the plot, do you remember the Tawani family from Caravan of Courage? All but one of them is murdered on screen in the first couple of minutes. And Battle for Endor just keeps going from there. So right off the bat, I'm good with that. 3 of the 4 are gone, which is great because that's all you're hoping for the entire first movie. We're introduced to a new wrinkle in the Star Wars universe. Magic. Or at least some other sort of sci-fi space wizardry that rivals the Force. And the opening slaughter sets the stakes very high, even when Battle for Endor turns a little cutesy. It's not a particularly great film. It's slight and strange and doesn't really fit into what we know of Star Wars, but it's a better adventure than most of the prequels.
A TV movie tried to come up with another space magic to rival the Force, and they're saying that's better than Clones and Phantom Menace.
And that's where Harry Potter was born.
You have got, yeah. You have got to be kidding me.
Well, okay, magic and other sort of Force-like
Talk about
powers.
Jumping the shark.
But in the Clone Wars, they do refer to other races that have some sort of powers, either by using the Force by another name or using something like the Force, like Dathomir, the Night Sisters that Asajj Ventress comes from. You know, Mother Talzin and Old Daka, they use some sort of magic stuff that's not apparently the Force, but it reanimates the dead and it casts spells and gives them magical weapons. And
yeah, but the Force is more powerful. They didn't come out and try and create something that's as powerful as the Force.
But they at least acknowledge that there are other things besides the Force that are like magic in the
yeah,
universe.
but according to this synopsis, they're trying to create something that's equal to the... Yeah. Give me a break, man. Are you kidding me? That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And he's saying that that's better than the prequels? Are you kidding me?
Well, the Ewok movie got a lot better once you started feeding them after midnight.
Right? Dude,
that's when you got Stripe running around, yeah.
Yeah.
That's like saying those stupid American Pie spin-offs, like American Pie Summer Camp or whatever, is better than like
movie.
American Pie itself. It isn't. It's just, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
This is the basis for a great interview, though. I would love for him to expound on why it's a better adventure than the prequels. Because that is really, at the heart of Star Wars, that's what it's supposed to be, as a fun adventure. And I think a lot of people have that criticism of the prequels, is that they weren't fun. They lost that sense of adventure that the originals had. They instead focused more on moving the story along than making sure that the ride was an enjoyable one.
It was an enjoyable ride. And we wouldn't get very far in that interview because I would start the interview with like, well, we've got our first guest on the show. We've got noted dip Matthew Goberliani or whatever the heck. I'm sure he'd like...
Not even close.
Well, whatever the heck it is.
William Bibiani.
Well, Goober Chaki or whatever the hell his name is, who's busy filleting the Ewok movie. What the hell is that? We'd get him on the air, and I'd be all cool, and then he'd start talking, and I would just get angry. I'd be like, no, you're an idiot. In fact, hang up on him. Screw our first interview. We're done with him.
I said good day, sir.
Yeah, good day to you, sir. I said good day. Slap him with a white glove. No,
You didn't notice this, but I just smacked my computer monitor with a
by the way,
white glove.
that edit was at about 62, 63 minutes. If I'm
Fortunately, I have a hotkey to mark these things. Edits go much faster now.
I didn't want to do it, but I couldn't help it. I was like, So that is just asinine. An Ewok movie better than 2 actual canon movies. That is horrible. That's horrible.
Sorry, I spaced out there for a second. I'm trying to remember.
That's like saying The Wiz is better than The Wizard of Oz. It really is. It really is.
Did the Ewok movies count as canon? They've
No.
expunged those, right?
Yeah, but they came out in like, what, 85, 84, something like that?
Yeah, they're saying just the episodes and the Clone Wars series is it, right?
Yeah, and Rebels.
Well, and yeah, everything moving forward.
Well, basically, yeah, from when the sale occurred back in, whatever.
2012.
Yeah. Anything going forward from there, yeah.
God,
but
can you believe it's been 3 years already?
4, really?
Yeah, going on 4.
Mm-hmm. All right, so now explain the episode 1. I'd like to see what, since he's basically flip-flopping episode 1 and 2 in this, I would like to see what his argument is for.
Okay, yeah, this is a good comparison. Okay, so for episode 1, here's what he has to say. Phantom Menace plays slightly better today than its reputation would suggest. But then again, its reputation suggests that it's the worst movie ever made, and we've already established that it's not even the worst Star Wars movie ever made.
Wrong.
Okay, so there's a decent premise right there. At least it admits that there are redeeming qualities of the movie and that it's unfairly lambasted. Lambasted?
Yeah.
Nobody knows that word anyway, so who cares?
I do, so I know what you mean.
Steve, that's Lamba.
I don't need to know how to spell. My phone does it for me.
You're hooked on Siri.
There was a noble effort made here to introduce new ideas to the Star Wars storyline, which I would agree with. That I give credit.
Yep, that's why I like it.
Okay. And even though most of them were unnecessary, hello, midichlorians, agree again.
I don't have a problem with it.
They do at least capture the attention more than slack-jawed monologues about sand.
Yeah, I could see that.
Okay. But there's nothing emotional to latch onto in The Phantom Menace, and nothing recognizably human except young Anakin Skywalker's yippee! And that part's just annoying.
Well, what about him having to go away from his mother when he's 9 years old?
You know, this is the section that I wish we had my girlfriend on, because she will defend Phantom Menace to her dying breath. She thinks it's the most human and connected of the films, actually. So this would be interesting to hear.
Well, she's also a parent of a 10-year-old, so it's probably...
Yeah.
She's basically, right now, she's Shmi, and Aiden is Anakin, so...
True.
I mean, it's right at that age. I would say that's a human storyline.
But when the movie came out in 1999, she was not a parent yet. So
yeah, but she didn't see it back then, did she? She just saw it recently.
I don't know. I'll have to find out. Anyway, let's continue. George Lucas, directing a movie for the first time in decades, is clearly more interested in the technical side of the film than the plot or the characters, neither of which make a whole lot of sense. Would you agree that's true or false?
No, I think it's false.
Yeah, I think it's a little unfair in this case because the movies were always a technical tour de force, so to speak. It's always about pushing the boundaries.
Pushing the technologies forward.
Yeah, so the fact that the story worked very well in the original trilogy and people have problems with the prequels doesn't mean his focus was any different.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with the story or the characters, really. I mean, again, you could say that the dialogue was kind of iffy, but I mean, as I've said many times about episode 1, that movie was always behind the 8 ball because it had the weight of episode 3, 4, 5, and 6 all on it. People were like, "Oh, I love, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi.
I can't wait to get more of that."
Yeah, it's not going to live up to it. It's just there's no way. That's probably why I liked it, because I went into it, and I still look at the prequels this way. I went into it as a whole separate storyline, just two different things that tie the universe together. But I looked at it as a separate entity from the original trilogy.
Yeah, the premise he put forth in episode 1 was that the stuff you saw in 4, 5, and 6 is not the way the galaxy was supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean it's a whole different universe in a way. So to me, I take the prequels as an entity unto themselves, and I like the story that they tell.
Yeah, if the Emperor had not come along and done all that stuff that made 4, 5, and 6, this is what Star Wars universe would be.
Yeah. And I thought it was a cool story. I always wonder that. Like, what if this was the beginning of Star Wars, was episodes 1, 2, and 3? Would people still hate it? Because
I don't think either way it plays out, you're going to be able to get people to love all 6 movies together, because the worlds and the state of the galaxy are so different that if you like 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6 is going to seem pretty stupid and out of left field to you, and vice versa.
But I like all 6 of them. I'm on record as saying that I like all 6 of them. And like I just said, but I think that's because I take them as 2 separate things. They're very different entities to me, and I like the premise of both of them.
Yeah, like I said, if you look at it like that, or if you look at it as what they're intended to be instead of trying to read into them, yeah, you can clearly enjoy all 6 of them without any issues with hating one over it. But just like anything, you're going to like one over another one. So
yeah. I always go back and forth trying to figure out which of the trilogies I actually prefer. And I think for me, it comes down to I like different things about each one of them. So it's hard for me to say because I've never actually tried to think about, well, do I like the prequels better or do I like the original trilogy better? I've never tried it because I'm like, well,
never sat down and watched all 6 movies with that premise in mind of trying to figure it out. Like you might start off that way, but 5 minutes into episode 1, you're just going to be sitting there enjoying the stupid movies.
Yeah, exactly. It's just fun to watch, man. It's cool movies with a cool story. That's all I ever see it as.
Yeah, I think where episode 1 is aging better than 2 strictly comes down to the effects. Because old computer-generated effects will never have a place in our hearts like old practical effects will.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that part of it where people say it looks too digital and stuff like that. Again, to me, that was how the effects of the time looked. So I don't ding it for that, because what else were they supposed to do? I mean, that's what George Lucas does. He takes the most up-to-date technology and pushes it. That's what a Star Wars movie, that's how it's created.
Yeah.
So I never took points away if it looks kind of sketchy. Well, that's the best that he had at the time. So you can't fault the guy. I mean, that'd be like taking points off of like Terminator, because in the scenes in the bathroom where he's cutting out his own eye, you see Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then that
horrible rubber head.
Yeah, and then the next time they flash back, it's his rubber head that's like twitching and like a totally different skin tone, and you can't ding it for that. That's what they had to use.
That was supposed to be kind of a crappy B movie sort of thing, though. I think the issue here is that of all the movies, this one ages the worst because it's got early gen CG. They made Jar Jar work in Phantom Menace somehow. And I think it was just because it was used sparingly only on that one character. I mean, yes, there was other CG, obviously. Mm-hmm. But, Jar Jar, they took enough time to make sure that was absolutely primo. Whereas, again, we talked about all the changes that Episode 2 went through during production. So I'm guessing a lot of those shots did not have the time they needed to be produced properly.
Yeah.
It might benefit the most of any of the prequel films with a special edition, honestly. If they had time to go back and do those effects better, I think it would be markedly improved.
Well, they cleaned it up for the Blu-ray. They cleaned up all of the movies for the Blu-ray release, and that's the other thing. Like people, this is what's funny is that people that are all of a sudden saying that Episode 2 is worse than Episode 1 because they like to nitpick things. Have you noticed that the argument about Puppet Yoda in Episode 1 is basically gone now? Because they replaced him with a digital one.
Yeah, it's funny that now he's the best Yoda you get, because even Episode 3 Yoda, I don't think they retouched him for the Blu-ray very much.
Not much, but they
Episode
said that
1 Yoda looks better than Episode 3 Yoda.
Yeah, they said that they retouched all of it, but I mean that's the thing. It's like they nitpick so much, and then but they don't. Oh, now I like Episode 1 because it doesn't have Puppet Yoda. Like Puppet Yoda sucked. I mean, I admit it was terrible looking, but it's just I don't know. And I think the reason Episode 2 isn't aging well, honestly, is that love story.
Yes,
and
it's the crux of the entire saga, and it just tripped over its own 2 feet when it was trying to get up off the ground.
I just really think it's dialogue based. I really do. I don't have a problem with there being a love story, and Anakin was a little bit of a creeper, so they could have handled it a little more delicately.
Yeah,
but I really think it's dialogue based, because you had the subtle love story between Han and Leia in episodes 5 and 6, and no one complained that there was a love story, but it was handled a lot better.
Yeah.
So I really don't think it's the fact that there is a love story, and let's face it, there had to be something, because what are you gonna have? What are you gonna have? Like Luke and Leia are the product of intergalactic rape? What are you gonna do?
It was immaculate conception.
Exactly. By the way, you want a new quote for the intro for me? There it is.
There you go. Yeah.
Intergalactic
Mark
rape.
it.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I mean, you gotta have a love story somehow. I mean,
the other problem could be people, general public of people love to hate things, and people like to front run and act like they're being individuals at the same time.
Yeah.
So there's so much hate built up for episode 1 that, with no logical reason, you probably just had people start to fall onto 2 because, oh, look at me, I'm being an individual. I like episode 1. Episode 2 is the crappy one. Now that starts to build, so now there's more people falling off the episode 1 bandwagon, acting like, I watched it about 72 more times. It's not that bad.
It's not as bad as I thought.
Episode 2, oh God, that's the horrible one.
Yep.
In a couple more years, people are going to find other stupid holes and reasons to go, oh yeah, I saw episode 7 like 16 times in the theaters, but now that it's out on Blu-ray, I really noticed that probably is like the worst of the movies. Like
right?
These guys, it really did, just phone it in, and stole the story from episode 4. Like every decade, people are just going to have another reason to hate one of these movies more than the next one, and not even give you a legitimate argument as to why.
At least that argument is valid, that they ripped off the story.
Yeah. Not to get too meta about this, but I think one of the things that episode 2 suffers from is that it really is, just like the storyline is telling, it's kind of like Star Wars in puberty, where you've laid the foundation in episode 1, and then everything is in this awkward transitional phase in episode 2, where it's starting to look like the Star Wars we recognize, where there's now space battles and there's guys that look kind of like stormtroopers, and we're getting Sith Lords and more lightsaber stuff going on, but it's not quite matching up to what we know. So the comparisons are being drawn, but they're not really fair comparisons, because the entire universe is still growing into the thing we know as Star Wars.
Yeah.
Episode 3 is so heavily into the original trilogy aesthetic. That one's very easy to forgive in a few spots because it's got enough original trilogy stuff to give us the feels. Mm-hmm. Episode 2 is like, well, it's like it wants to be Star Wars, but it's just not there yet.
It's a very, like we said at the outset, it's it's the most different of the 7 movies, for sure. Mm-hmm. It's very much the most different. And all the people that hate on it, I would just love to discuss with them, like, what do you want? What would you have done with it? And it's kind of my question about the prequels in general. Oh, the stupid political story and da-da-da-da-da. Well,
and
okay,
all the arguments
what would you want?
All the arguments fall on what we brought up earlier of you only have X amount of time to pull it off. People do have legitimate arguments of, they could have covered this, and this, but you only have X amount of time.
Right.
If they would have made the prequel saga, 6 movies instead of 3 or something like that, you could have explained everything a hell of a lot better, obviously.
Yeah.
Or if you turned it into a series like the Clone Wars, you could have done so much more with it. But
I think that's why the Clone Wars works as a series. If they try to do the same thing in between the original trilogy movies, there's just not enough story there.
Imagine if the Clone Wars was a movie, if it was Star Wars Episode 2.5, could you imagine what they would have been able to take from 6 seasons of that show and shoehorn it into a hour and 50 some? I mean, what would you do?
Yeah, 2 hours and 20 minutes, like the others. Yeah,
you shoehorned it into 220. Just think about, as much as you know about it, AJ. What could you even pick? Like, obviously, there's going to be some big plot points out of the 6 seasons, but to try to fill 2 hours and get your point across without having all this extra space of 6 seasons times how many shows times 30 minutes a piece, how long would that 6 seasons be? That's 12 hours plus of screen time there. How are you supposed to shoehorn that into 2 hours for a movie?
And the bottom line, Star Wars, it's a simple story, but when you really get into it, it really isn't. It's a pretty involved story. You're talking about a whole galaxy. I mean, there's more to it than just the good guys beat the bad guys, because the way that it was written leaves a lot to be discussed. So there's going to be stuff that fell by the wayside.
Yeah,
that's the whole premise behind Rogue One.
We're not huge fans of it, obviously, because we know nothing about it. The EU, millions of pages of different things are going on in the Star Wars universe all at any given time. We know one thing going on with Anakin. How many other dozens of things are going on somewhere else in the galaxy that
Yeah, Star Wars by nature lends itself to discussion because of all the things that aren't explained.
Yeah.
So
and Episode 2 had a tremendous burden to bear because it had roughly 10 years after Episode 1?
Yeah.
So it had to advance the state of the galaxy to that point, to right where you get the spark that ignites the big war. So you have to, in those 2 hours, communicate how the galaxy is now ready to spark a war over this one little planet in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
All while trying to justify the tie-in to start Episode 3 later on.
Exactly, right. Then you've got to also lay enough pieces that when you pick them up in the next movie, which is, roughly 6 years later, I think?
No, I think it's less than that, but it's not. It's, I think, like 3 or 4, I think, isn't it?
Okay, so let's say it's 3 to 4 years later. There's still got to be enough of those Episode 2 pieces in play to make sense to tie together.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot of connective tissue in a huge time span. So
yeah.
I think maybe what Episode 2 suffers from most is just having too much to do.
Well, why don't we leave it there, and the rest of that list.
I don't want to. I'm not done.
Keep that article, because the rest of that list should provide some interesting discussion in terms of the way they ordered the other 5 movies of the saga. So
we're not gonna post it.
Yeah, we'll post it later.
Can we commentate the Ewok movies?
Oh, now that would be interesting.
One thing that's fun about this article, though, is when it talks about the holiday special, it does link over to a commentary track for it.
Really?
I don't know who did a commentary track of the holiday special, but I would love to hear it.
You got to send me that link so that I can listen to that commentary. I hope
I'm sure we could do better.
Oh my gosh! But anyways, want to thank everybody for tuning into another episode of the Nerf Herder Council. Encourage everybody to share our links on your pages. Tell your friends, whatever. Tell that Bibiani dude or whatever that he doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground. Feel free to do that. But hope you guys are enjoying the show. I'm sure that we'll have another celebration update as time goes on, once we start finding out more information. Probably no more hotel information unless you send the email that you should send.
Well, pretty soon we'll start geeking out about all the information pouring out of Celebration Europe.
Yeah, that's definitely something we'll keep everybody posted on, because I'm sure some of our audience probably doesn't,
live in London.
Yeah, or just sit on the internet waiting for information from Celebration like we do. But anyways, thanks again for listening. We will catch you guys again next time. Until then, I am your host, JT, at Dog Pound Jedi. He's AJ.
At Drake Adams 579.
He's Steve.
JSteve1005.
And we'll catch you next time.
This bucket of bolts is never gonna get us past that blockade.
This bucket's got a few surprises left in her. Plus, me and Chewie are on it. Ain't that right, Chewie?
Hell yeah, you my Nerf herder.
You my Nerf herder.